The sky blazed overhead, a sheet of merciless blue. When Jonah Rourke first saw her, a figure slumped beneath a gnarled mesquite, dress torn, bonnet barely clinging on. He pulled his horse to a stop, dust curling around them, and narrowed his eyes. A woman, alone, in the middle of nowhere. He stepped down slow, wary. Her head hung forward, unmoving. "Ma'am," he said softly. Her face lifted, burned from sun, lips cracked, eyes dazed. Dirt clung to her cheeks, blood dried in streaks. "Don't touch me," she rasped, voice hoarse and dry. "I won't," Jonah replied, unclipping the canteen from his saddle. He knelt, held it out. Her fingers trembled as she grabbed it and drank deep. Then she coughed, her entire body shuddering. "What happened?" he asked. Her gaze drifted west. "Wagon train left me," she whispered. "Fever took me down. When I woke, they were gone. Took everything. Left my babies." Jonah's stomach nodded. "Where are your children?" She nodded toward the rocks behind her. He moved quick. In the shade, two small children huddled together. A boy around 5, a girl no older than 3. Their eyes wide, frightened but alive. He turned back. "How long have you been here?" 4, maybe 5 days. "I fell. Hurt my leg. I can't walk." Jonah looked at her ankle, badly swollen, bruised. She couldn't stand on that. "What's your name?" "Lena Hale." "I'm Jonah Rourke." His eyes met hers. "I'm not leaving you here. You don't know me. I don't have to." She flinched as he lifted her gently into his arms. She was far too light. The children followed in silence. He wrapped his coat around them all, mounted his horse with Lena in front. The children nestled safely in the saddle behind. One hand on the reins, the other cradling her, they moved through the dry hills. She leaned into him, head resting on his chest, breath hitching. Her fear softened into something else, a quiet trust. By the time they reached Jonah's camp near a creek, the sun was low. He laid her down carefully, checked her ankle again, offered her jerky and more water. She ate slowly, eyes never leaving his. "You live out here alone?" "For now." "Why?" He hesitated. "War took a lot. Noise, pain, loss. I needed silence." Lena's hand brushed his as he checked her fever. Her touch lingered. That night, he bathed the children in the creek, their laughter echoing softly. Lena watched from the bedroll, eyes misted. "Thank you," she whispered when he wrapped them in warm blankets. "You don't need to thank me." "I do," her voice broke. "No man's ever carried me to safety." He knelt beside her, brushing a strand of hair from her brow. "You're safe now." As the fire crackled, she reached out, her fingers grazing his wrist. He didn't move. In the hush between stars and cottonwoods, something fragile and true took root. Morning broke soft. Her fever had dropped. Her ankle, though still bruised, looked better. He made her willow bark wraps, and she endured the pain without a sound. "You're stubborn," he said, tying the cloth snug. "I was a midwife in Missouri. Stubborn kept me alive." "Do you have family out here?" "My husband died at Pea Ridge. The wagon train was all I had left." "What were you hoping to find?" She looked at him. "A piece of land I could call my own. Something no one could take." He nodded. That he understood. Later, as he carved a stool to prop her leg, she stitched his torn shirt with quiet care. The days passed gently. Jonah taught Victor how to go to fish, tie a knot, light a fire. The boy mirrored him in silence, a quick learner. Viola followed her mother, threading flowers, collecting shiny pebbles. Lena shared stories of her childhood, the cabin, the cherry tree that never blossomed, the Bible in her mother's hand. He told her about driving cattle, blizzards that buried hope, and nights too cold to dream. Each evening, the fire pulled them close. And every time their eyes met, there was something more, not hurried, not desperate, just real. Healing. "You don't owe us." Lena said one night. I don't want to walk away. You ever think of settling down? He looked up. Maybe with someone who knows how to stay. A long pause. Then maybe I'll stay too. One morning, he handed her a cloth bundle, his mother's sewing kit, worn and dear. She tatted that lace waiting on my father's letters, he said. Lena ran her fingers over it. Slow. I haven't touched lace like this since my wedding. Was he cruel? Jonah asked gently. No, but his fear outweighed his love. He went to war without looking back. I stayed for the children. Jonah didn't speak, only looked at her, like he truly saw her. She touched his hand. I used to flinch when men got near, but I haven't since you. I'm not like most men. No, she said softly. You're not. When her ankle finally allowed, she limped to the edge of camp, leaning on the walking stick he carved. The children bloomed like spring in the safety she found beside Jonah. You ever think of claiming land? She asked. I did, up near Elk Hollow, but I didn't want to build something no one would share. What if someone wanted to? He smiled. Then we'd build it together. That evening, when Viola crowned her mother with wildflowers, and Victor asked, Can we stay here? Lena didn't hesitate. Yes, she said, looking straight at Jonah. Let's not wait too long. They borrowed a wagon, hauled timber and seed, and returned to Elk Hollow, where grass rolled like waves and cottonwood stood like old sentries. This place breathes, Lena said, hand gripping the rail. It's waiting to be alive again. Together, they raised walls. Victor stacked stones. Viola planted mint. Lena stirred stew in the half-built cabin, and Jonah worked by lantern light to carve the porch beams. One night, as dusk painted the valley, he asked her, Would you let me build you a room with a door that shuts? She smiled, gentle and true. You already did. They kissed then, slow, knowing, certain. Winter came early, but the cabin held strong. Warm from the stove, laughter from the children, and love stitched into every corner. Lena read her mother's old letters. He held her hand as she cried for the woman who raised her strong. I want this place to hold, she whispered. It will, he answered, because we will. They married plain beside the stream, with a stone ring Jonah had shaped himself. Her dress was simple calico, stitched with care. His shirt was the one she had mended that first week. Victor held his sister's hand as they watched. No grand words, just vows that held. Years passed. They added rooms, grew food, painted shutters. Viola planted marigolds each spring. Victor built a hen house by 12. Lena's hair turned silver at the edges, and Jonah's back thickened with labor. One night, by the firelight, she leaned into him in the rocking chair he'd made. Do you remember the first time you carried me? I remember every step, he whispered. She smiled. I never thought peace would feel like this. He kissed her forehead. You earned it. Outside, the wind moved soft through the cottonwoods. And inside the home they built, the love they grew held them close. Forever. The sky that morning was dim with promise. Clouds hanging low like a hush over the land. Rain had come in the night, steady and soft, soaking into the earth and quieting the world. At the edge of Elk Hollow, beneath the cottonwoods now slick with dew, Sawyer Hale stirred the embers of the fire, glancing over his shoulder. Evelyn sat up slowly beneath the lean-to, her legs still wrapped but less stiff now. Her hand rested on her lap, a length of muslin in her lap, half-stitched into something delicate. She gave him a quiet smile, the kind that said more than words, and he answered with a nod, then turned back to the fire. Victor was already awake, gathering kindling again, his little shoulders hunched against the damp morning air. Viola lay curled beside her mother, still dreaming. You didn't sleep, Evelyn said gently, her voice soft with concern. I never do when the air feels like this, Sawyer replied, eyes still fixed on the flame. Storm's not done with us yet. She tilted her head. You mean the weather? He shook his head once. No, I mean the world. Trouble has a way of sniffing out quiet lives. She folded the muslin, set it aside. What kind of trouble? Could be any kind, he said. But something in my gut tells me we ain't out of the woods yet. Evelyn's eyes narrowed slightly. You felt like this the day you found me, didn't you? I did. She reached for the walking stick he'd carved her, slowly rising. Then we best prepare. By midday, the sky darkened again. Sawyer had taken Victor with him to set snares further up the creek, teaching the boy how to read scat and spot tracks. Evelyn stayed behind, stirring beans in the pot, humming an ode beneath her breath. Then came the sound, a distant clatter. Hooves. She stood still as stone, hand tightening on the spoon. Moments later, the shape of a rider emerged from the trees. Then another and another. 3 men, all rough-looking, trail-worn and hard-eyed. They didn't smile when they saw the cabin. The tallest of them, a man with a faded army coat and a long scar down his cheek, dismounted first. Evelyn stepped out onto the porch, spine straight despite her limp. "Afternoon, ma'am," the scarred man drawled. "Didn't expect to find company way out here." "This land's claimed," she said firmly. "You're riding where you don't belong." He chuckled low. "That a fact." He stepped closer, his boots heavy in the mud. The other 2 flanked him, eyes roving toward the open lean-to, the coiled rope, the stacked kindling. "Looks like you made a fine little camp for yourselves," he said. "Must be plenty to share." "I've got children here," Evelyn warned, her voice hard. "You best keep riding." "Children or not," the second man muttered, "ain't right leaving strangers out in the cold. We're just looking for shelter. You'll find none here." And then Sawyer's voice came from the trees behind them, calm but sharp. She said no. The 3 men turned. Sawyer stood just beyond the cottonwoods, rifle cradle in his arms, Victor behind him. "I won't ask again," Sawyer said. "Get off this land." The man with the scar smiled cold. "We're not looking for trouble." "Then leave." There was a long, taut moment. Then the scarred man tipped his hat. "You've got grit, I'll give you that." He turned to his horse. "Let's ride." They mounted and rode out slow, but Sawyer didn't lower his rifle until their silhouettes disappeared into the trees. That night, Evelyn couldn't sleep. She sat by the fire while Sawyer cleaned his rifle again, slow and methodical. "They'll come back," she whispered. "Maybe," he replied, "but I'll be ready." She looked into the flames. "You could have killed them." Didn't want to do that in front of the boy. Evelyn was silent a while, then leaned closer. "I meant what I said before," she murmured, "about not wanting to be alone anymore." He looked at her now, eyes deep and steady. "I built fences," he said, "corralled cattle, survived snow and hunger and loss. But I never thought about building something that mattered until I met you." She reached out and took his hand. "I want to stay here," she said. "I want to build this life with you, not just for the children, but for me." He tightened his fingers around hers. "Then this land is yours as much as mine." She rose slowly, stepping toward him. "I ain't never kissed a man under the stars before," she whispered. Sawyer stood and reached for her waist, pulling her close. "Then we got some catching up to do." Their kiss was soft at first, tentative and tender, but deepened into something full of promise and heat. The fire popped behind them, and above, the stars turned slow and silent in the night. The next day, they began to truly build. Not just a home, but a life. Sawyer dug deep for the root cellar, and Evelyn marked out a plot for beans, squash, and corn. Victor helped set fence posts, while Viola wove garlands of flowers and sang songs from Missouri. Laughter became more common than silence, but tension lingered too. Sawyer rode out each morning to check the horizon. Evelyn kept a pistol near the hearth. She didn't say it, but both of them felt it. That storm wasn't over yet, and 1 week later, just as dusk fell, the 3 men returned. They came quietly, walking their horses to muffle sound. But Sawyer had already seen their tracks that morning and strung a tripwire through the brush. When the wire snapped, it rang a small bell just inside the cabin. Sawyer was already by the door, rifle loaded. Evelyn pushed Victor and Viola behind the bed, her eyes sharp. The door burst open, and this time Sawyer didn't speak. He fired once, the bullet hitting just inches from the lead man's boot. "I warned you," he said. "You ain't got the nerve," the scarred man growled, stepping forward. Evelyn's voice rang out then, strong and fierce. "Don't test a woman with nothing to lose." And she fired too, straight at the beam above their heads. The men hesitated, then ran. This time, Sawyer followed them to the ridge, rifle raised, watching until the horizon swallowed them whole. Peace returned after that, slow but sure. Sawyer filed a report with the marshal in Rollins, and by the time the leaves turned, the claim was officially theirs. Evelyn's name added beside his. They built 2 more rooms. A garden bloomed. Chickens clucked in the coop Victor built with his own hands. One crisp fall evening, with snow whispering over the peaks, Sawyer stood on the porch, arms crossed. Evelyn stepped up beside him, holding 2 steaming mugs. "You ever think we'd get here?" she asked. "Not in my loneliest dreams." She leaned against him. "You're not alone anymore." He kissed her temple. "And I never will be again." They married that spring with nothing but the wind and the cottonwoods as witnesses. Victor held his sister's hand. Sawyer held Evelyn's. And when they spoke their vows, it wasn't with flair or fanfare, but with a quiet strength that had been forged in fire, storm, and love. Years later, when gray touched his beard and silver lit her hair, Evelyn would sit on the porch with her hand in his, whispering, "You found me when I was lost." And Sawyer would always answer, "No, I just walked far enough to find what was mine all along." And beneath the cottonwoods, they stayed, together, forever.